My name is Xavier, 33 years old, a programmer living in California. My life revolves around computer screens, endless lines of code, and late nights debugging. But for the past 2 years, I've had a bigger goal: to fulfill my parents' dream, a luxurious trip to Europe, something they never dared to imagine. My parents, hard-working people their entire lives, always talked about Paris, Rome, cobblestone streets, and ancient castles with sparkling eyes. I want to give them a memorable experience to show them how vast and beautiful the world is. I've been working like crazy. During the day, I grind at the company. At night, I take on freelance projects. Every dollar I earn goes into a savings account. No parties, no shopping, no small trips. I've cut back on everything, living so minimally that my friends call me boring. But they don't understand. Every time I see the balance in my account grow, my heart races. After 2 years, I've saved $50,000, enough for a lavish week-long trip. I want my parents to experience the best: business-class flights, 5-star hotels, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, private guides, and luxury car transfers. Everything has to be perfect. I started planning 6 months ago. Every night after shutting down my computer, I'd sit and research. I chose a hotel in central Paris with a view of the Eiffel Tower, booked a private tour of the Vatican so my parents could hear stories about Michelangelo, and arranged an evening on a Venetian gondola. I imagine my mom's smile as she steps into a fancy restaurant, my dad's eyes lighting up in front of the Colosseum. I call them every week, excitedly sharing every detail. "Mom, you're going to eat cod at a restaurant cooked by a world-famous chef." Mom laughs over the phone, her voice warm. "You're making me so nervous, Xavier." My parents are getting ready too. Mom bought a new dress, saying it's to look good in photos. Dad, who never cared about fashion, got himself a pair of leather shoes and a fedora, claiming it's to look European. Our calls are filled with laughter. I can feel their excitement, and it makes me happy. I've done it. I'm making their dream come true. But deep down, I have a small worry. I have a younger brother. In our family, I've always been the responsible child, the one who takes care of everything. Blake, my brother, is different. He's 28, lives recklessly, loves partying, and can't hold a job for more than a few months. My parents have always doted on Blake, maybe because he's the youngest or because he knows how to make them laugh. I'm not jealous, but sometimes I wish I could be spoiled by my parents the way they spoil Blake. I quickly push these negative thoughts aside. This trip isn't about proving anything. It's a gift I want to give them, and I'll do everything to make it perfect. I check the itinerary one last time. Flights are booked, hotels confirmed, guides ready. I've emailed every restaurant to ensure they know my mom can't eat seafood. I've even prepared a playlist of classical music for the car ride from Rome to Florence because Dad loves Mozart. Everything is set. In just 2 weeks, I'll board a plane with my parents, leaving California for Europe, where dreams come true. The following days, I remained immersed in dreams of Europe. Every morning, I checked my email, ensuring all reservations were in order. Every evening, I called my parents, listening to Mom talk about how she'd learned to fold a handkerchief like an aristocrat for the Michelin-starred restaurant. Dad excitedly shared that he'd watched a documentary about Rome, ready to become a historian at the Colosseum. I laughed, feeling like my heart was soaring. Everything was on track. But then one evening, Mom's voice on the phone wasn't cheerful anymore. "Xavier, there's something." She hesitated. I sat up straight, a bad feeling creeping in. "Blake, he came home. He lost his job. He's not doing well." My heart sank. Blake. He always showed up at the worst time to mess everything up. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Is that so, Mom? Is Blake okay?" Mom sighed, explaining that Blake was depressed, staying home all day, not talking to anyone. "I'm worried about him, Xavier. He needs something to lift his spirits," Mom said. I nodded, thinking I could help, maybe send Blake some money or find him a vocational course, but Mom didn't let me finish. "What if Blake comes with us? I mean, this trip could help him. He needs a push." I froze, gripping the phone tightly. "Take Blake along?" This plan was for my parents, the gift I'd poured 2 years of sweat into preparing. I'd calculated every cent, every moment. How could I add another person? Mom, this trip, I planned it for just the 3 of us. Adding someone would be really difficult. I tried to explain, my voice trembling. Mom was silent for a moment, then said, her voice soft but firm, Xavier, Blake really needs this trip. You can figure it out, can't you? You've always been our strong son. Her words cut like a knife. Strong? Yes, I've always been the strong son, the one who handles everything, the one who sacrifices. But this time I wanted something for myself, for my parents, not for Blake. I muttered, I'll think about it, Mom. But deep down I knew she'd already made up her mind. The days that followed, every call revolved around Blake. Dad, usually quiet, started mentioning the whole family going together. Mom kept talking about Blake's bad mood as if I was the one who had to fix it. I tried to stay calm, but every time Blake's name came up, my chest felt heavy. I started reviewing the budget. Adding one person might be possible, but it would mean cuts. No more 5-star hotels, no more private guides. The thought hurt. This was my parents' dream, not a playground for Blake to get back on his feet. Then a week before the trip, Mom called again. Xavier, your dad and I talked. What if you let Blake take your spot just this once? Blake really needs this trip. I was speechless. Give up my spot? They wanted me to stay home, to let Blake, who never cared about our parents' dreams, go in my place. I wanted to scream, to ask Mom if she saw the 2 years I'd slaved away, the nights I stayed up, the times I gave up every joy to save. But I only whispered, Are you sure, Mom? She replied, her voice gentle. You understand, Xavier. You're the older brother. Let your brother have this. I hung up, sitting in my dark apartment. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. I just felt a vast emptiness in my chest. I opened my laptop, looking at the itinerary I'd planned. The Eiffel Tower, the Vatican, the Venetian gondola, all now for Blake. I pictured him with his careless smile boarding a business-class flight, sitting in the seat meant for me. I texted Mom, All right, I'll step aside. But I didn't say more. I couldn't. The next day, Blake called. I thought he'd thank me, but no. Hey, thanks for giving up the trip. His voice was cold with a hint of mockery. I know you don't need all that fancy stuff anyway. I clenched my fist, wanting to yell at him, but I only said, Have fun. Hanging up, I sank onto the couch, my mind spinning. Dad didn't call, didn't text. Mom sent one message. Thank you, Xavier. We know you understand. Understand? I didn't understand anything. I only felt pushed out of my own dream. I looked out the window, cars passing under the streetlights. I'd done everything for my family, but now I felt like I was nothing to them. Blake, with his thoughtlessness, had taken it all, and my parents, the people I loved most, had let it happen. In my heart, a fire started to burn, not anger, but determination. I wouldn't let this story end like this. 3 days later, I stood at San Francisco International Airport, hands in my pockets, watching my parents and Blake drag their suitcases through security. Mom waved, her smile radiant. Thank you, Xavier, she called out, but her voice was quickly drowned out by Blake's laughter. He was joking about something with Dad, both of them laughing loudly as if this trip belonged to them alone. I forced a smile, raising my hand to wave back, but no one looked back. They passed through the gate, shoulder to shoulder, suitcases rolling smoothly, leaving me standing there, alone in a sea of strangers. I had driven them to the airport, even though no one asked. I thought at the very least I wanted to see them off, to see my parents' smiles before they stepped into the dream I'd built. But the entire drive, they only talked about Blake. How much Blake would love Paris. How much Blake needed this trip. I sat behind the wheel nodding, but my chest felt heavy. When Mom turned to me and said, Take care of yourself at home, okay? I just nodded, not daring to speak, afraid my voice would tremble. Blake didn't say a word, just wore his earphones, eyes glued to his phone. Now, watching them disappear beyond the security gate, I felt like a ghost. I'd given up the trip, given up the dream, but no one paused to ask how I felt. No hugs, no heartfelt thanks, only their laughter echoing, reminding me I didn't belong in this moment. I turned and walked to the parking lot. The cold wind blew past, but it wasn't as cold as the emptiness in my heart. A few days later, I sat in my apartment, the light from my phone screen casting shadows on my face. Mom had just posted a photo. Her, Dad, and Blake standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, beaming. The caption read, "First day in Paris, amazing." No text asking how I was, no word of thanks. I stared at Blake's smile, the way he posed as if the trip was his alone. My chest burned like something was igniting, scorching the last of my patience. I tried to work, but my mind wandered. Every time I opened my laptop, I saw the itinerary I'd planned. The 5-star hotel in Rome, the private Vatican tour, the Venetian gondola. All of it was now Blake's stage. I imagined him sitting in a Michelin-starred restaurant, ordering expensive cod, oblivious to the effort I'd put in. And my parents? They posted photos, video-called friends, boasting about the family trip. But me, the one who made this dream real, was erased as if I didn't exist. I tried to hold it together. I told myself I was the older brother, the mature one. But every new photo from Mom, every "Blake's having so much fun," felt like another stab. On the second night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch holding a cold coffee, staring out the window. The streetlights glowed faintly, the sound of cars humming in the distance. I thought about the past 2 years. The sleepless nights, the parties I skipped, the dollars I counted penny by penny. I did it all for my parents, for their dream. But they chose Blake. They always chose Blake. The next morning, I opened my laptop. A thought flashed, sharp and clear. I couldn't let this go on. If they didn't value me, I didn't need to keep everything perfect for them. I logged into the booking account, my hands trembling slightly. The list of services appeared. The Rome hotel, the Florence tour, the luxury car, the Michelin restaurant. All in my name. I could cancel them. I could stop this now. But I hesitated. Canceling everything would ruin my parents' trip. I loved them. I didn't want them to suffer. But then I remembered the airport, Blake's laughter, Mom's eyes when she said, "Blake needs this trip more." I remembered Blake's mocking smile. "I know you don't need all that fancy stuff." I remembered Dad's silence, the way he avoided my gaze. My love for them was still there, but it was overshadowed by hurt, anger, and a yearning for justice. I clicked cancel on the Rome hotel. A pop-up appeared. Cancellation fee is 80%. Are you sure? I stared at the amount, thousands of dollars, my sweat and blood. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and hit confirm. The screen switched to canceled. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and exhilaration. I kept going. The Florence tour, the Venice car, the Paris restaurant. Each click was a step toward reclaiming control. The cancellation fees piled up, but I didn't care. I wanted them to feel, even just once, that I wasn't the one always fixing things. When I finished, I sat there, stunned. The phone was silent, but I knew a storm was coming. I pictured my parents arriving at the Rome hotel, only to hear the staff say, "Your reservation has been canceled." I saw Mom's panicked face, Dad's confusion, and Blake's careless shrug. Part of me felt guilty. I'd ruined my parents' dream. But the bigger part, the part burning inside, felt relieved. I'd done something for myself. That night, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Mom called first. I didn't pick up. Texts flooded in. "Xavier, what's going on? The hotel says the reservation was canceled." Then Dad, "What did you do?" "Call back now." Blake sent one line, "You're so petty." I read them but didn't respond. I silenced the phone and set it aside. For the first time in years, I felt I didn't have to fix everything. I didn't have to be strong, Xavier. The next morning, Mom called again, her voice trembling in a voicemail. "Xavier, why did you do this? We're in Rome with nowhere to stay. Blake's furious. Can you reinstate the bookings? I'm begging you." I listened, my heart aching. I loved Mom, but I couldn't go back. Not this time. I sent a short text. "I've done enough. Figure it out." After sending it, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd set a boundary, painful as it was, but I wasn't at peace. I opened my laptop, searching for services in Rome, ready to send Mom suggestions for budget hotels. My fixer habit lingered, stubborn, then I stopped. No, they needed to figure it out themselves. I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the balcony. A cool breeze carried the distant scent of the sea. I breathed deeply, feeling like I'd just stepped through a new door. In my mind, another idea began to form. If my parents and Blake had Europe, I could have my own world. I thought of places I'd never been, experiences I'd never tried. Africa came to mind. Savannah plains, lions, star-filled skies. I'd always wanted to go on a safari but never dared because I was too busy taking care of my family. Now what was stopping me? I had nothing left to lose. The days that followed, my phone kept buzzing incessantly as if it might explode. I pictured them in Rome, dragging suitcases on cobblestone streets, Mom frantically calling hotels, Dad frowning as he tried to figure things out, and Blake no doubt sulking and blaming everything but himself. A part of me ached, urging me to pick up the phone to send them a list of budget hotels. But I held back. I'd done enough. 2 years of grinding, 2 years of sacrifice, and they chose Blake, leaving me at the airport like an outsider. Now they had to fend for themselves. At night, I called Mark, my childhood best friend. Despite the late hour, he picked up, his voice alert. "Xavier, what's up?" "It's been a while." I poured it all out, the Europe trip, how I gave up my spot for Blake, the airport scene, and finally my decision to cancel the bookings. I told him about the angry messages, the feeling of being cast aside. My voice trembled, not from sadness, but from unloading everything I'd bottled up for too long. Mark listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sighed. "Xavier, listen. You're not wrong. Your family treats you like an ATM, always expecting you to sacrifice. Blake's never grateful, and your parents are blind to it because they spoil him. You canceling the trip was right. They need to know you have limits." I stayed silent, Mark's words cutting through the fog in my mind like a beam of light. "But they're my family, Mark. I love them." Mark shot back. "Love doesn't mean you let them walk all over you. You need to live for you, Xavier. Go somewhere, do something for yourself. Don't wait for their approval." The call stretched on for over an hour. Mark told me about his trip to South Africa last year, the Savannah plains, the elephants, and the sense of freedom standing amidst nature. "You should try it, Xavier. Go alone. No family, no pressure, just you and the world." His words hit me hard. Africa. I'd never thought I'd go that far, but the idea suddenly blazed in my mind. A trip for me, not for anyone else. The next morning, I opened my laptop and searched for safari tours in Kenya. My phone buzzed again, another text from Mom. "Xavier, I'm sorry if I upset you, but you have to help us. Blake's really stressed." I read it but didn't reply. I didn't want to be dragged back into the old cycle. I focused on the screen, scrolling through travel websites. A 6-day tour in Masai Mara caught my eye. Sleeping in luxury tents, watching lions, elephants, and starry skies. No 5-star hotels, no Michelin restaurants, just nature and silence. I wanted that. I checked my account. The cancellation fees from Europe had eaten up a chunk, but I still had enough for this trip. I didn't hesitate. I filled out the form, picked a departure date, just 3 days away. When I hit confirm, my heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. I was doing this. I was choosing myself. The phone buzzed again, this time a furious voicemail from Blake. "Who do you think you are, canceling everything? You want the whole family to suffer to get back at us? You're so petty." I listened, then deleted it. His words held no weight anymore. I wasn't petty Xavier. I was Xavier taking back my life. I texted Mark, "Booked a Kenya trip. Safari, 6 days. He replied instantly, "Hell yeah, bro, go and enjoy. Don't let your family drag you back." I smiled, the first real smile in days. I started preparing, bought a new backpack, checked my passport, read about Masai Mara. Each step made me feel lighter, like I was shedding an old version of myself. My family kept texting, but I stopped opening their messages. I knew they were struggling. Expensive hotels, canceled tours, Blake probably making things worse, but I couldn't keep being the fixer. I packed my suitcase, gave my apartment a final glance, and headed to the airport. I stepped out, suitcase rolling behind me, my heart light as the breeze. At the airport, I stood at the boarding gate watching people pass by. No one saw me off. No one laughed beside me, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. The plane took off, and as California faded beneath the clouds, I knew I was flying to a place with more than lions and savannas. A place with a new Xavier, one who no longer lived for others' expectations. The plane landed in Nairobi on a sunny morning. The African air greeted me with the scent of red earth and unfamiliar bird calls. I stepped off, backpack on my shoulders, no private guide, no detailed itinerary like the Europe trip I'd planned. This time it was just me and a small safari tour in Masai Mara. I wanted to immerse myself in nature, to find myself after the hurt my family caused. The guide, a Masai man named Keanu, met me at the airport. He had a warm smile and eyes sharp as an eagle's. "Welcome to the Mara," he said, pointing to the horizon. I nodded, feeling like I'd stepped into a new world. On the jeep ride to camp, I looked out the window. Golden savanna stretched endlessly, grass shimmering under the sun, and in the distance a herd of antelope ran. I breathed deeply, my chest light. No texts, no blame, no Blake. Just me and nature. My camp was a large canvas tent in the heart of the savannah. Not luxurious like the five-star hotels I'd booked for my parents, but perfect in its own way. The first night I sat by a campfire, listening to Keanu talk about lions and how the Maasai live in harmony with the land. I quietly pulled a small notebook from my backpack and started writing. Day 1. I'm here for no one else. I want to know who I am when I'm not family Xavier. Each day in the Mara was a discovery. I woke at dawn, following Keanu into the savannah. I saw lions lounging on rocks, their eyes lazily watching us. I saw a herd of elephants crossing a river, a calf nestled by its mother. Once we stopped the jeep and Keanu pointed to the sky. A flock of hawks soared, free as the wind. I wrote in my journal, "Freedom isn't having no ties. It's choosing what makes you alive." I started thinking about my life in California, how I'd always chased my parents' and Blake's expectations. I wanted to stop. I began thinking about the future. I wrote new goals: renovate my apartment, learn to cook, join a hiking club. I wanted to travel more, not to please anyone, but to nourish my soul. I want to live a life with no regrets, I wrote, and for the first time I believed it. I was no longer family Xavier. I was Xavier, finding my own path. On the last morning, as I ate breakfast by the campfire, Keanu handed me a satellite phone. "Message for you," he said. I frowned, taking the device. The screen showed a text from Mom. "Xavier, we're home. You need to come back now. We have to talk. Urgent." I read it, my heart twinging. Images of Mom's worried face, Dad's frown, and Blake's scowl flashed in my mind. Part of me wanted to call, to know how they managed in Europe, to hear what they had to say. But I stopped. I looked out at the savannah where a cheetah stalked through the grass. It was patient, confident, unhurried. I wanted to be like that. I didn't want to rush back just because my family called. I texted back, brief, "I'm fine. I'll come back when I'm ready." I sent it and turned off the phone. Keanu looked at me, smiling as if he understood. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. Better than ever. On the final day in the Mara, I walked with Keanu, watching a herd of zebras migrate. I wrote in my journal, "I don't need my family to change for me to be happy. I choose my happiness right now." As the jeep took me back to Nairobi, I looked at the savannah one last time, my heart light as a cloud. I didn't know what my parents would say when I returned, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd found a new Xavier, strong not because others validated him, but because he believed in himself. On the flight back to California, I opened my journal, rereading what I'd written. Each line was a step away from my family's shadow. I knew I'd face my parents, Blake, and their accusations when I got back. But I wasn't in a hurry. I was living for myself, and for the first time, that was enough to make me smile. The plane landed in San Francisco on a cloudy afternoon. I pulled my backpack and stepped out of the airport, no longer feeling the weight I carried the day I saw my parents and Blake off to Europe. The savannah had changed me. Those days in Masai Mara, the lines in my journal, the moments standing amidst wild nature had given me a new strength. I was no longer the Xavier chasing my family's expectations. I was Xavier who knew what he wanted. But I knew returning home meant facing them. Mom's message, "You need to come back now, urgent," still lingered like a summons. I hadn't responded beyond the brief text from Africa, but I guessed they were waiting. Perhaps angry, perhaps hurt. I wasn't in a hurry. I stopped at a coffee shop near the airport, ordered a black coffee, and sat watching the stream of people. I opened my journal, rereading the final line. My happiness doesn't depend on my family. I choose it every day. I smiled, closed the notebook, and drove to my parents' house. The suburban house was the same: white picket fence, Mom's flower garden, the faint smell of cookies wafting from the kitchen. But when I pushed the door open, a heavy atmosphere pressed on my shoulders. Mom sat on the couch, her eyes red. Dad stood by the window, arms crossed tightly. Blake wasn't there, but I felt his presence in Mom's gaze. "Xavier," she said, her voice trembling. "You're back." Dad turned, looking at me, but said nothing. I sat down, my backpack by my feet. "You texted me to come back urgently. What's going on?" I asked, my voice calm. Mom sighed, as if holding back a storm. "You know what, Xavier? You canceled everything in Europe. You left us stranded in Rome, no hotel, no tours. Blake was panicking. Your dad had to run around finding a place to stay. I couldn't sleep for nights. Why did you do it?" Her words hit like a punch, but I didn't flinch. I looked straight into her eyes. "Mom, I did everything for that trip. 2 years of saving, 2 years of planning, but you chose Blake, told me to give up my spot as if my effort meant nothing. At the airport, no one asked how I felt. I'm tired of always being the one to sacrifice." My voice wasn't loud, but each word was sharp. Mom froze, her eyes welling up. Dad shifted as if to speak, but stayed silent. "Xavier," Mom whispered, "I didn't know you felt that way. I just thought Blake needed that trip. He's been struggling." I cut her off, gentle but firm. "And what about me, Mom? Don't I struggle? Don't I need to be cared for?" Mom lowered her head, clutching a tissue. For the first time, I saw she had no answer. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. "Son, we were wrong not to consider you, but canceling the trip, that was too much. We're family." I nodded, but didn't back down. "Family doesn't mean one person always takes the hit, Dad. I love you both, but I can't keep living to fix everything, especially for Blake." I paused, taking a deep breath. "I went to Africa, alone. I found what I want, a life that doesn't depend on whether you see me or not." Mom looked up, eyes wide. "Africa?" she asked, as if she couldn't believe it. I nodded, briefly recounting the savannah, the lions, the journal entries. I wasn't bragging. I just wanted them to understand I'd changed. "I didn't cancel the trip to get revenge," I said. "I did it to protect myself." Then I stood, grabbing my backpack. "I'm going back to my apartment. When I'm ready, I'll come back to talk." Mom reached out to stop me, but Dad shook his head as if he understood I needed space. I walked out, feeling like I'd shed a burden. The confrontation wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was a milestone. I'd spoken my truth, not to hurt them, but to free myself. Back at my apartment, I started making changes. I repainted the walls, bought a new dining set, hung a Savannah photo on the wall. I signed up for a cooking class, joined a hiking club. Every day I did something for myself, not to prove anything, but to live. Mark came over laughing when he saw the revamped apartment. "You look different, Xavier, like you found a superpower." I grinned, handing him a beer. Not a superpower. I just learned to love myself. I planned new trips: Patagonia, Iceland, Japan. I didn't need my family's involvement or their approval. My happiness now was mornings with coffee and my journal, sweaty hiking afternoons, dreams of new horizons. Once Mom called, her voice soft. "Are you okay, Xavier?" I replied, "I'm good, Mom. Really good." She didn't mention Blake, and I didn't ask. I didn't need to know. At night, I sat on the balcony watching the city lights. A cool breeze carried the scent of the sea. I opened my journal and wrote, "Freedom isn't leaving family behind. It's leaving their expectations. I'm happy because I chose myself." I closed the notebook, leaned back in my chair. The savannah had taught me I didn't need my parents to change for me to live. I'd found my path, and for the first time I knew, no matter where I went, I'd always belong to myself.